the mountains of East Gippsland are waiting for you. So come and take a break on the Gippsland Lakes on a luxury yacht or cruiser, available from Adventure Charters. Phone this number now and plan your own adventure.
We hope you're enjoying the program. The club's achievements are indeed numerous. However, the most significant is this one, the first football club formed in Tasmania. I'm referring to the Launceston Football Club, a club of many firsts and a club that justifiably earned the tag, the Mighty Blues. It all began when the club was founded in July 1875, following a meeting at the Criterion Hotel, now the head office of the Tasmania Bank in St John Street, Launceston. 1888 saw Launceston win its first Northern Tasmanian Football Association Grand Final. More followed and the success continued after the turn of the century. In 1923, Heck Smith joined the club. He was made a life member of the NTFA in 1946, and the association's Best and Fairest Award was named the Heck Smith Medal in his honour. The period between 1933 and 1940 became known as the Golden Era. Some of the club's greatest players were discovered, such as Trevor Ranson. Now, in his 80th year, Trevor's football career began with Scottsdale.
I went from the juniors, of course, up to the Scottsdale seniors when I was 16. I used to have a roving commission those days, and only quite small. So then I went, of course, in 1932. They invited me into Launceston with my brother, and I was full-back, and he was full-forward. Well, the second year he was in Launceston, he went full-forward. The first year, Jack Foley was an outstanding full-forward.
Trevor says his years with Launceston had an awesome introduction.
1932, of course, our initial year I came in, we finished on the bottom of the roster. And then in 1933, I think the first 5 or 6 matches we lost, and then we had a change of coach. We won our first match under the new coach, and that was Rivets Macaulay, and we went on then, Launceston went straight through then for 6 years straight. Went through from 1933 to 38. They never lost the match, or they lost matches, but they won every premiership for the whole 6 years, and I think it's an Australian record, actually.
He turned to coaching after World War II, and one of Trevor's fondest memories is 1945.
I had a very successful year. We won the premiership. We had 5 boys on the side with only 16 years of age, but some notable players among those were Max Rees, Paddy Martin, Chapno and Badcock, Carter, and Viv Watkins from Piper's River. And they were the boys, all came away from the Launceston High School.
In those days, of course, there was no Windsor Park, the current home of the Blues.
York Park was a home ground for Launceston North and City. And Longford, of course, had their own ground. There was only the 4 sides. And then later on, East Launceston came into the picture, an extra team, and they trained at the cricket ground. And even we played matches at the cricket ground. There's quite a lot of the roster matches were played at the cricket ground. During
the 1930s, Trevor saw an important innovation to on-field tactics.
1937, when Jack Beveridge took over Launceston, they'd already won 4 premierships straight. But when he came, he put in the handball into the game. He was regarded as the most brilliant exponent of handball in Victoria. And I quite recollect when we defeated the team in Hobart in 1937 for the state premiership. I think the first 4 or 5 goals we scored, the only man that kicked the ball was the full forward, or the forward player who scored the goal. It was all handball right from the centre, bounce.
It was also in this era that Leo Macaulay would become a legend. Macaulay played 203 games and coached the premiership sides from 1933 to 1936. Launceston players had many skills back then, and Leo Macaulay was stroke when the club took out the Football Club Fours at the Tamar Regatta in 1933. The success of the club has continued, as have the big names like Graham Lee, who joined Launceston in the 1960s. These days, he's an executive with the Philip Morris Company, but well remembers his time with the Blues.
I coached Launceston for 5 seasons from 1963 till 1967, and I must say that even though we made the 4 each year, that was about as far as we went. So didn't have a wonderful trot actually coaching Launceston, but I must say they were a tremendous club and a very old and proud club. They have a tremendous lot of tradition at Launceston.
Graham did move around a bit after growing up on the northwest coast.
I was born at Wynyard quite a few years ago, actually. Too long to remember, but I left Wynyard in 1960. I had about 5 years with Wynyard, and then went to St Kilda in 1960, came back to coach Launceston in 1963, and then moved to coach East Devonport in 1968. So, and that's where I finished.
His career highlight was probably national representation.
Yeah, that was in 1966 at the Carnival in Hobart, Peter, and naturally I was fortunate enough to be selected in the All-Australian side along with Peter Hudson. We were the only 2 Tasmanians selected at that, but there were certainly some great players also selected in it, particularly Darryl Baldock, Ian Stewart. They were 2 ex-Tasmanians that were playing for Victoria at that particular stage. Barry Cable from Western Australia, and John McIntosh, Kevin Murray. So there were certainly some great players. Johnny Cale from South Australia, he was playing on a wing for South Australia, so there were some great players in that series.
In the 90s, Graham enjoys watching his 2 sons play for East Devonport and owning successful racehorses like Barrington James. His Philip Morris job also has its sporting connections.
We sponsor quite a few events in Tasmania. We're involved with the Symonds Plains Motor Racing, which, with the development that's going on out there, should see some exciting times ahead at Symonds Plains. We're also sponsors of the Launceston Greyhound Club and sponsor the Peter Jackson Launceston Greyhound Cup, which creates certainly a lot of interest. The Latrobe Speedway is another area that we are major sponsors of, and so we're involved in quite a few sports in that area in the state.
The great names of the 60s continued to emerge. L.B. Dunn, 146 games, the Hecksmith Medal and state representation. In 1968, Bob Withers was appointed coach, and a year later, the Blues won their first flag since 1951. More than 20 years down the track, Bob Withers is president of the Trevellyn Bowls Club. Bob says that 1969 was a tremendous improvement on the previous season.
We were a big disappointment in our first year. We were runners-up to Scottsdale, I think, about 5 or 6 points, and we done it hard all the way through that 1969, but we were determined to win that. But we come up with a couple of very good recruits, Tony West and Scrubber Lehman, and they just topped the side right off, and we won it well in 69. We beat East Launceston pretty convincingly.
Withers has no difficulty remembering his lineup.
Graham Wise and the ruckman, Victorian VFL player, L.B. Dunn, South Melbourne Rover, Bob Gormley, centre-half back, Grassy Hay, full-back, Martin Anstey, ruck, Tony West, the half-forward flank. He kicked 13 straight in the finals, 8 straight in the second semi, and 5 straight in the grand final, top side.
Bob moved camp from North Launceston to join the Blues. So what was the transition like?
I went there with mixed feelings after coming from a very strong club like North Launceston and realising that Launceston, different type of club, but really there's just as much tradition at Launceston as what there is at North Launceston, and personally I think it's only a matter of time before they're in the statewide comp, because they've got the grounding there, they've got the tradition, they've got the administration. They haven't got the players at this stage, but they'll certainly get them. And the club itself is by far better than some other clubs in the TFL.
Bob Gormley was a member of the 1969 Premiership side, and he still enjoys an affiliation with the club.
Yeah, I'd like to keep close to the Blues because, you know, I think they're headed in the right direction. I think they're on the crest of a wave, and it looks as though that in the future, whether it's near or distant, that there could be the chance of getting into the statewide competition, which would be excellent for a club of our age.
In 1976, the club celebrated 101 years of existence by winning its 28th premiership. Launceston appointed Philip Horn from East Perth in Western Australia as captain coach. And this is how he described the team's final training lead-up.
Nothing will be different as far as training. We're not going to put in any extra nights or anything like I've heard some clubs are doing, but our players will be doing plenty of ball handling, sharp work, and they'll be short nights.
Launceston came from 4th on the ladder to win the final, and victory over City South in the first semi-final was the confidence boost.
Launceston's Philip Horn won the toss and elected to kick down the Invermay end of the ground. Well, it's a beautiful day for football. We've had quite a bit of rain during the week, but it has certainly helped this ground tremendously. You can see bare patches all over York Park, but the ground is in magnificent condition. And after the excellent game of football that we saw last Saturday here, we should see a similar type of game today. There's the tap down by Dutton, but immediately picked up by Stidiu. Going to attack through Coombs, getting it down to centre-half forward. It comes down to Tuthill. He sends it down to centre-half forward, where players going up. No one can mark the ball. It comes to ground. Gary Hiscox is in there, and he's going to get a free. And here's Gary Hiscox for Launceston, milling in the centre of the ground, moves quickly. And there's his kick going right down to centre-half forward with players going up. Bob Smith falls in a beauty. Now, he is the focal point today. If Bob Smith can fire, if they give the ball to him correctly, Launceston are well on the way to winning this one. But if City South move the ball as quickly as they have been over the last 4 or 5 games, then they're going to win the first inning. Now, here's Bob Smith in tremendous form. There's his kick. It's on its way. It's offline, though, and through for 1 behind. So, Launceston are 1 behind, and City South 1 goal in the first 2 minutes of the first semi-final.
The 1976 winning combination, along with Bob Smith, included Guy Tuthill and Tony Fafaro, who cherishes the memory of that great victory.
Players go through their playing career and not playing a premiership, and I was quite lucky to play in 1976 under Phil Horn, and we beat North Launceston by a point. It was probably one of the greatest games that people have witnessed, and I've played in. It was a great achievement that year.
Fafaro is reserves coach this year and simply describes the club as a home.
We spend as much time down here as we do at home, so that's good.
You look equally as fit as your playing days.
I keep fit. Yeah, I do run with the boys, but they're sort of trying to get me to play. But you know, when you get my age, Peter, you got to slow down a little bit.
Another member of the class of 76 was Ian Donachie, now Junior Development Officer at Windsor Park. Donachie strayed to other clubs, so what brought about his return?
Just something that brings you back to Launceston. I think once you've played with Launceston, you'll always come back here, and I guess being an old fellow of the club, I just want to come back and see the club be successful again. In 1976, wingman Paul Ellis gave the club another reason to smile when he took out the NTFA's Best and Fairest Award, the Hecksmith Medal. Recruited from Avoca in 1973, Ellis paid tribute to the late Bruce Freeland as a stalwart of Launceston who got him started.
When I first raised 7, I first came, I was the worst kick in the world. There's probably a couple of worse than me now, but not many, but he helped me a hell of a lot when I first came. You know, I was learning to kick, and he was a really great guy for the club.
Paul Ellis is playing for the reserves. However, he'll hang up his boots this season, 18 years from when he started.
Yeah, I started back in 1973 under Bobby Withers, and I've kept on, and I went away for a little while when I officially retired in 85, but no, it's just a great club, great bunch of people, and everyone sticks together pretty much, and it's just good to be associated.
Launceston's next premiership arrived in 1985, and ruckman Robert Dutton played a big part. Dutton is enjoying success in the hospitality trade as part owner of Launceston's Royal Hotel. He's football director for the Blues. His association with them goes back a long way.
Off and on since 1976, Pete. I played from 76 to 1980. Then I transferred to Melbourne for 2 or 3 years. Then I played a couple of years with Clarence. And in 1985, came back to the club as a player. That was the year we won the flag. And I was a player up until 2 years ago.
Dutton says, like himself, the Blues supporters keep on keeping on.
Launceston Football Club, I've often said it, we've got a lot of closet supporters. The club has supporters in the background, and when we get successful, they turn out, and this year has certainly proved that. We've had record gates nearly every time we've had home games here. And there's definitely blokes out there that want to support, and women want to support Launceston Football Club. 1991
will be remembered as a year of happenings for Launceston. A new lighting system is up and running, a real boost for winter night training. The new lights are a result of the club getting together with local government, as Beaconsfield Council Clerk Paul Ranson explains.
Well, Council and the football club have gone 50-50. It cost us $44,000, and the football club are putting in $22,000 of that.
And the lighting system is only one part of a major development plan for Windsor Park.
The longer term, we're looking at developing a grandstand, particularly for Windsor Park. We were hoping in the when we originally did plan to try and get a grandstand which we could use also for Foster's Park, which is the cricket oval. But we believe that because of the siting of the oval that we'd have too many problems with the sunlight in the afternoon coming into that grandstand.
Launceston has made the finals this year, and much credit goes to former player and now coach Paul O'Donoghue, who spent 10 years with the club. Paul says the 1991 team is full of talent.
Yes, we were fairly lucky in that we picked up 2 or 3 guys from Deloraine in Phil Moyer and Dale Tubb and Michael Jordan. And then a couple of players sort of came on to us as a bit of a bonus in Todd Lewis and Patrick Bailey. They were players that we never anticipated getting at all, but through different circumstances with work and with Todd, and also Patrick decided that he had enough of travelling down to Sandy Bay. They were bonuses for us, and they've really fitted in and done a fantastic job to get us where we are.
O'Donoghue adds the club has enjoyed an enormous lift this year.
Both on the field and off the field. I think we've got to remember that there's been as much work done off the field as what we've showed on the field, and that's been a big turnaround for the club. And that's sort of carried out onto the ground as well. And I mean, you have to win to get success, and we've sort of been able to do that as well. So it's been a good compliment right through with the club on the field and also the hard work that's been done off the field.
O'Donoghue has got what it takes to make a successful coach. But is he a hard taskmaster?
Some of the guys probably think at times that I go over the top a bit, but basically I believe that, you know, we have to go out to do the work. You're there to do a job, and we just work as hard as we can on the ground. When we train, we go out and we train hard. So basically I enjoy being able to mix after the game, but while we're on the ground, we're there to do a job, and I believe that if you're going to do it, you do it as hard as you can. And I suppose if that's being tough, well, yes, I am, I suppose.
Top player Patrick Bailey says O'Donoghue has got the side all fired up for the most important part of the season.
Paul's done a great job this year. He's moulded the side together very well, and Paul has a very competitive nature, and I think that he's instilled that into the players, and I'm sure that we'll acquit ourselves very well in the finals.
Bailey says his return to Launceston was perfect timing.
I've always intended coming back, Peter, and I suppose the time was right this year. I had a phone call from Robert Dutton at the beginning of the year, a few weeks before the season started, and he laid out the plans that the club had this year, and I liked what he told me, and I thought that this was a good year to come back.
Launceston is in a sound financial position, partly due to the efforts of the Queen Quest competition held between all NTFL clubs. 1991 entrant is dental receptionist Marilyn Richards. She says it's enjoyable, but does involve lots of fundraising.
It's been very hectic. We have ground raffles. We have a major function, which is our Christmas in winter. It's held every year. And small things along the way, like slave auctions, and we have a quiz night, and Peter Scott had his 200th game celebration this year.
Max Howard has been Launceston president since 1985, something he doesn't regret.
It's been great. We've had some hard years, but recently, or this year, we've been able to pick up some players, and we're doing very well, and the way we're going, if we get all players fit, we will win the 1991 premiership.
Victory or not, the Launceston Football Club tradition will never die. Bob Hay retired from playing and coaching 20 years ago.
I enjoyed the club. They always were a good club and still are.
Jeff Fountain, the success behind Theogenes Fitness Centre, says he'll never forget his association with Launceston, which goes back to 1971.
Great club, Peter. I think I've got a lot to thank the Launceston Football Club in a way, because I think it's, you know, it's as life generally goes, you know, you get your lucky breaks, and I think that it was through the football club and the contacts I had there that enabled me to get Theogenes going back in those early days.
Players and supporters will keep coming back, like they did for this year's reunion of the last 3 premiership sides of 1969, 1976 and 1985.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never the famous old dark blues.
And good luck. Tough road ahead for the grand final. 3 cameramen involved in that feature: Michael Brooks, John Martin, Jerry Merrick, and Andrew Shepherd was the videotape editor. We hope you enjoyed it. We go back to the water after the break with more.